Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Let's begin.
Hello and welcome back to Football Kentron, the only English language podcast dedicated to Armenian football, as far as we know. I am your host, Adam, and I am joined here by the usual suspects, Chadens and Armen, my beautiful co-hosts, and we come at you after a very eventful UEFA Nations League campaign. Boys, how are you doing?
Good. Excited. I mean, a lot to talk about as always, and good stuff, bad stuff. Overall, looking
Yeah, a
forward
lot
to
of topics
come.
today.
Well, of course, as usual, a lot to discuss. So
Yeah, it's
first,
more topics this time. Yeah, like
we'll
a lot
start
of
off with
different things together mixed. Too much.
lots of headlines. First, big thing, obviously, Armenia have been relegated from the UEFA Nations League after a 5-0 loss to the Ukraine and a 3-2 loss to the Republic of Ireland. Armenia ended bottom of the group, only managing to get 3 points, and that was in that 1-0 win against Ireland in the opening game. And we are back down to League C for the next iteration of the UEFA Nations League. And we'll talk about a little bit more about the implications of those in a bit. But boys, let's just start by essentially summarizing, not necessarily about what we saw on the pitch, because I don't think that would be helpful, but more of the overarching themes of what we saw over here. So, Admin, what's one overarching theme that you saw in these two matches? And we'll go around a few times. So, what's one overarching theme that you saw in these matches that you feel contributed to these results and ultimately to our relegation?
There's a lot, but as you said, I would say mentality. I would say for once, the off the pitch situation, I believe, affected the team, and I can say, I could see the psychology, the team being burnt out against Ukraine, and then what I saw the changes, like a lot of youth coming off the bench. We needed that spark, We needed people that needed to play, and a lot of the change on the pitch came from that, came from the generational change. So everything is connected in a way.
Okay, that's good. That's a good one to start. I agree. I think mental the mental side of the game is something that we have stressed that needs improvement. And interestingly enough, pre all of this, this Nations League campaign, I actually read that the Armenian Olympic Committee has actually hired sports psychologists to help with their athletes. And I thought, that's very interesting that the Armenian Olympic Committee is doing this. This is something the FFA should strongly consider bringing in. But next topic, Chadens, what's one overarching theme here?
I want to jump into the average age. I personally have not compared the average age in the previous selections to be able to compare them and give my observation regarding it. However, just like some of our fans noted, that I had a reaction to the selection of Magoyan. That basically sums it up. Like, you're bringing in players. This was a young lineup. This was a young squad selection. But on the field, did we see a young selection?
No,
did we see a newer,
not at all,
adapted game? Well,
No.
that answers the question. We didn't see an adapted game. We didn't see a different kind of game. It was similar mistakes, similar way of playing, which leads to another point as well. That the playing game was not any different.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you just need to look at the numbers there to tell you the truth. It's 32. Our average starting lineup was like 32 and a half years old was the age, and something along the lines of like our average squad age was, I believe, the highest in our group as well, if I'm
So
not
I
mistaken.
got the list. I got the list right here. Yurchenko, goalkeeper, 36, and here's the best. Buchnev, which is not even good. I mean, he's one of the worst supposed Armenian goalkeepers in the APL, and he's on top of that. He's 32. Andrei Chalishir, as much as I love him, he's 32. Voskanyan, same case as Buchnev, 29. Mokoyan, 36. Ovo Ampatsumian, again, as much as we love him, 31. Captain Vato is okay. Captain is 30, but he's a CB, so he's got a long, like a good 4 years ahead of him. And Artak Grigorian, the Lion, 34. He's done. He needs to go. We love him, but he needs to go. Horik Bayramian, 30. Artak Tashan, which is like a weird case. Benjamin Button, 32. Lucas De La Rayan, 30. And honestly, we gotta go into Lucas a little bit, but later on, bro. And those are the guys that played, that started.
Yeah, that sums it up. It's literally, you can see it there. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to over analyze it or anything. You could just see the starting lineup. It's like you're playing them for what?
Yeah.
There's no end goal to it.
Yeah, I agree. Next item I'll bring up, discipline or lack thereof. Huge theme in this campaign. We had how many red cards, penalty kicks given away.
Yeah.
I mean, a general lack of professionalism on the pitch, and I think that plays into the mentality that we had previously discussed.
Related to that, we had 4 red cards within the last, I don't know, 4 games, was it? Or 3 games.
Yeah.
4 red cards in 3 games. 2 of them, the ages of the players with the red cards. Again, 29, 31, and 32.
Yeah, it's these are people that, like, I guess,
supposedly experienced.
Yeah, people from outside looking in would say these are supposed to be these are the experienced guys, and I think the ones against Ireland were sloppy. They were avoidable. But I understand, like, the mental, because of the situations that went on and in quick succession. I think
what was at play?
Any hot-headed Armenian would have had the same reaction, and unfortunately, many of us are hot-headed. So I could definitely see how that. But I'm talking about the other
mentality.
two, the tackles, the both the Hovanesian red cards. Those were stupid. Those were just dumb. Those were. There's a reason why they weren't in the squad. Not only were they because they were suspended, but because they don't deserve to be there.
And throw back to what we were saying also, the Norway game.
Mm-hmm. Another, exactly.
It was a friendly game, which was like the door to this.
I think that was Cap's mistake, in my opinion. I mean, lately, this last season, we have been seeing several tactical mistakes from Cap, which we're gonna get into. But on that one, I wouldn't have, like, yes, Arman Hovanesian was the worst tackle there, but he wasn't the only one, and we saw targeted tackling, like
Stiopa had one. Yeah. It was
everyone.
Yeah.
Horik, a game that was against players of the caliber of Holland, of Odegaard, Joshua King. Like, you had a chance to show talent and play your game, and you could lose 4-1, but do something with that game. And instead, I don't know what the idea was in that game, but the Scotland one was awful. The tackles against Scotland were avoidable and stupid. There was, like, the team was dominating. We were 1-1 and could have scored another winner, 2-1. and not of us all of a sudden we went to halftime a man down, I believe, and there was no immediate invasion of Armenia at the time, so there were no excuses for those two red cards, as opposed to the Ireland game that, again, unprofessional. It was, but it was a lot more understandable against Ireland than it was against Scotland.
Yeah, agreed. Chadens, next overarching theme in this campaign that led to Armenia's relegation.
Well, the next one, I personally want to note out the previous, which I was going to lead to from the previous one, is Caparros' playing style.
Mm-hmm.
The way we were expecting, we're anticipating that we would line up for the given teams, they were completely the opposite. Like the last game, for example, against Ireland, we're expecting to go all out attack in a way to try and actually get the win.
Because we need to win. Because we need to win.
It didn't happen.
Yeah,
I think it was the only thing to do, and it didn't happen. Like there's nothing to lose. Literally, you need to win. What have you got to do? Fool.
I think the best example of this, Chadens, comes in that last game against Ireland, with something that I had pointed out when the lineup came out.
The subs.
No, not the subs. The fact that he was starting Lucas Zelarayan and Eduard Spertsyan, two undoubtedly extremely talented number 10s. Whether or not one's better than the other, it doesn't matter, because they're both very good and they're both very capable. But neither was playing in their natural position. Lucas was playing as a false 9 and Edo was playing as a 6. It's just, to me, it's like the waste of selections, the waste of tactical setup is appalling. You have Stiopa Makrichan, who is an extremely capable young central defender, very physical, has shown his dominance in the last match against Ireland. Bring him on, partner him with Haroyan. That's a fresh center back pairing. But what do we do instead? We have Makoyan. We have a back five system that doesn't really work. That our players got dismantled by Ukraine in the first of two games because people, they were playing a zonal marking system and no one knew when to step and everyone was afraid to step, afraid to make a tackle, and it just ended up being walk into the edge of the box, ping it across, and someone tapped it home. That's literally what it was every single time. But just because no one knew what they were doing, and we've said this before, a 5 at the back is just not it for Armenia. They'll concentrate. They'll give you 50 minutes of great concentrated defense. But what happens after that? They fall apart. And that happened every single game.
I mean, one more defender doesn't guarantee better defending. I think that's the takeaway there. And another thing I want to note related to this, to the playing style, is that what do we do when we have the ball? Like, what have we been doing for the last season? Throw it away, like as if we don't want the ball. That I know, and I've read and then learned that this has always been Cap's style at his club career, Bilbao, Sevilla, Osasuna. But that's not the one that suits us. Armenia thrives with the ball. Armenian players thrive in possession and short passing style. And it was so obvious, it was insanely obvious to see the change after halftime. We were 1-0 down. Things got 2-0, and Armenia changed the approach suddenly, right? They started. I believe it was the 50th, 55th, or 60th.
It was
minute
when Vahan got substituted on. That's when.
Yeah, the first few substitutions matched the change of approach, because one would think with Zelarayan and Spertsyan on the team, they would focus on short passing, right? But no, it didn't turn out to be that way. Subs came on. Lucas was subbed off. Vahan was stopped on, and suddenly, for some reason, Armenia changed players aside, personnel aside. When Armenia changed and shifted the approach, 2 goals out of in 2 minutes, and it was so obvious. It should have been like that from the beginning, and
Mhm.
and it related to that, again, everything is connected in
Yeah.
life and in football. We are teaching philosophy here. Uh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, we saw like I was gonna get into this, three very specific play styles in 3 different seasons for CAP, and we saw the best of the Armenian national team under Caparros. Everything was positive and like high, everything brought the best in each other over the first year and a half. Why? Because back at that time, Cap was adjusting his coaching style to our capabilities and qualities. And after the whole Heno locker room fiasco, halfway through Cap's spell at the national team, that was an inflection point, and we saw an Armenian national team back to playing style that Cap tried to impose on the team. And I don't know, that was the inflection point, the change in approach.
Yeah, and I think this plays into the fact that all of our goals, all 3 of our goals scored in this campaign were scored from outside the box. And if you look at our style of play and our approach to every single match, that makes sense. Several long balls over the top to Tigran Barsekan. That was the game plan. That was how the Caparros wanted to transition from defense to attack. But every single time, Tigran Barsekan was not able to do anything. He couldn't hold the ball. He lost possession.
The goal
He
against
just
Scotland, Vahan, that was inside the box. And again, ironically, both
there you
goals
go.
against Ireland were outside the box, but ironically, they came when Armenia started to play short passing and
Short passing.
possession,
And
which
this
plays into
leads
the
me to this.
confidence.
Well, and this also leads to my ultimate point that I've been making, that it's one thing I really don't like under Caparros is the lack of a importance of a number 9. And I obviously Spain had shown that you don't need a center forward to win, but we don't have that quality. We cannot
Hmm.
play 2 false 9s and expect good results. And leaving out Sagi Sadaman from the squad for one reason or another, falling out with the coach,
I mean, I
it
don't know if
shows.
that's. I don't
It
know.
does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, without Sacco,
If you replace Tigran with Sacco in these situations, that is what he does week in, week out in the Bundesliga, in a
hmm
top league in the world. Of course, he's going to be able to do it against a few Irish players. It's things like that bother me. And Sacco, of course, contributes in his own way. He is for us forward. He is a very creative player,
hmm
for a number 9, and he does it for Hoffenheim, and he did it for Hoffenheim. He definitely did it for Club Brugge, and he's doing it for Cologne in this season. And we just need to leverage that. I mean, it's we already don't have players in top 5 leagues in Europe as is, and to purposefully leave them off, in my opinion, makes it even worse. And not having that, what British people call fox in the box, to be able to convert those second chances, or
hmm
help create those chances, help the hold up play, which is this whole
Definitely.
capital style of play, hold it up and play off the wings. You're not going to have success, and that's exactly what we saw.
We were also very unlucky to have both Babayan and Balekian injured on the same week. I mean,
But I mean, again, I think Babayan and Balakian. I feel like Babayan is similar to Barsekan, except he's probably just faster. Um, but I would say that's somewhere that Norby would have been a huge help for sure. final point, I guess, and this is again another A to Z point that we just saw. There was just very evident of an unprofessional footballing structure in Armenia and a general lack of merit when it comes to our football. There is a lack of merit when it comes to squad selections. There's a lack of merit when it comes to how the clubs operate, because there's this general, favoritism towards non-Armenian players. There's this general lack of merit towards playing specific players that have been here for a while just for the sake of them being here, or because they're kavod, as this person, as Armin likes to say it.
Yeah.
And that has hurt us. I think we had a golden opportunity.
Bro, we literally were talking before hopping on today to the recording. 3 very specific cases that would like shed light perfectly on how this works. Teams are benching. We're referring to Van and Pokemon. They're benching Najarian and Gorelov from Van, and they're benching Obasarian at Pokemon. All 3 of them are huge diasporan talents that repatriated to Armenia to get citizenship and play for the national team, and they're getting benched. It's like, what this is funny, it's tragicomic. How good must Pokemon be to have a former Germany under-17 national team center back and Hamburg youth captain as their second string player?
This will continue. It's not like it's gonna stop here. Like, we're noting it here, but everyone who is listening will know this will continue, and this continues.
Yeah. And is there going to be a change? I mean, I don't know. We've noticed a lot of discontent from diasporan players that we've spoken to that have expressed their frustrations with the Football Federation. I think Daron Iskandarian is a great example of coming from
Artur Avagimian.
Another good example.
Former national team Keram Kadimian again.
Yeah, another one. The guy was a freaking machine in Belarus, and just
COVID Messi.
COVID Messi. Yeah, he was literally the best player in the world at that point. Yeah. So, bottom line, Armenia relegated down to League C again. I think failing to capitalize on a golden opportunity that would have helped Armenia grow even further in its football, but I would say an important lesson for us in that, success can be taken away from you as fast as you earn it. So, or faster than you earn it. So, Armenia will be placed in pot 1 of the next UEFA Nations League campaign, which I believe is set to be played in 2024. Armenia is in pot 1 with Romania, Sweden, and Russia, if Russia are allowed to play. So good news, at least, out of all this is we avoid playing Sweden or Romania or Russia because we are considered one of the 4 big dogs in League C, which is going to be yeah, it's going to be weird to see how we're going to be considered the bigger fish in this pond, because anytime commentators or writers or journalists are going to be talking about League C in the Nations League, they're going to talk about how Armenia was playing in League B, and so Armenia is going to be favorites in probably every single one of these matches. So it's going to be interesting to see how that change how that pressure is going to play. But we don't know when that's going to happen yet exactly, and I believe the prize for getting first place in that Nations League campaign will be the playoff spot. But again, being a League C winner, unless you're the top League C winner, it's not going to benefit you as much. So whatever, take of that what you will. But the more important thing in the grand scheme of all of this was actually something that was pretty much confirmed when we were promoted to League B, but was cemented after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, ironically. Armenia is in pot 3 for the UEFA Euro 2024 qualifying draw, which will take place a couple days actually after this episode comes out.
Yeah. Well, from this recording 1 week, but yeah.
Yeah, October 9th. There we go. Uncharted. So we had to put the date. I didn't see it there. So Armenia, this is Armenia's highest ever seeding in qualifiers, meaning we have an opportunity to be in a group of 5 or a group of 6 where half of the teams are a very high likelihood worse than us. I mean, there are some teams in pot 4 we would like to avoid, like Greece and Turkey. Well, I don't know if you would want to avoid Turkey. I personally wouldn't. But Macedonia, I don't want to play them anymore.
Not today.
There are some teams that we don't get because of one another.
Yeah. Azerbaijan is in pot 4.
I would rather avoid Kosovo and Bulgaria than Macedonia because history has shown that Armenia can play and beat Macedonia repeatedly. Not recently, but repeatedly.
Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, I'm just tired of playing them. I just don't want to play them.
Armen, you said Kosovo. I believe if let's say if Serbia, if we're in the same one as Serbia, let's say, we don't get Kosovo.
Oh, I got it.
That's what I was saying before. There are a few teams that cannot get each other. It's not just Armenia and Azerbaijan. Yeah. It's Armenia.
Silver lining, I guess.
It's different teams. Yeah, there's like there's 4. I think 4 pairs.
Yeah. So if we get one of those 2 hard volcanic teams, we avoid the other.
Yeah. I think it's really what's really important here is pot 1 teams are very likely going to win their groups. Pot 2, however, there's a lot of teams there that are beatable, and I think it really depends on who we get in pot 2. I mean, you have because the way your qualifiers is top 2 qualify, I believe, and I don't know if there's a playoffs, right? If there's not, it's the Nations League, correct? So there is no playoffs. So top 2 qualify, and if you're in a group of 5, and if we're Armenia, we're the pot 3 team. If there's 2 teams that are worse than us, and if the pot 2 team is a beatable team, like I don't know, I'm looking here and I'm seeing Israel, Bosnia, and Finland.
Bro, I mean, Finland today. But if we look at the qualifiers, 2 things. Away to Scotland in Glasgow, we got a better result at Hampden Park than Ukraine did. And at home in Handabedagan, we were dominating, as I said. And had it not been for those 2 stupid red cards, which play into the lack of merit that we constantly talk about and the structural problems, we would have beaten Scotland. So Scotland is beatable for Armenia. And actually so is Ukraine, but it's the approach that makes us think that we're actually worse than we are.
Yeah. So in a ideal world for the Euros, we would like to see, doesn't matter who from pot 1, because I mean, I don't think we can beat any of those teams. From pot 2, Israel, Bosnia, Finland. I want to avoid Serbia, obviously. England and France, they need to be avoided at all costs. I wouldn't mind watching us play against Czech Republic or Wales. I think those would be very interesting games. But it's pretty much avoid France, avoid England, avoid Serbia. The rest I'm okay with.
I agree.
And it's just going to be an all-out battle. And I would also prefer Armenia to be in a 5-team group, because there are going to be 3 groups that have 6 teams, because there's 3 pot 6 teams. I believe it's Liechtenstein, San Marino, and Andorra. I would prefer we avoid that. I would prefer Armenia are only in a group of 5, because that gives us more. It gives us 2 more games to mess up against what's considered inferior opposition. Which knowing us,
I got it.
The probability is pretty high there. So that's what I think. What do you guys think?
I understand. Yeah, I agree.
Well, the draw is going to be October 9th. We'll see who we get. It's going to be pretty exciting. I believe the matches start in March because we have the November friendly window, which Armenia is anticipated to be playing a game or 2. And then we have the World Cup at the end of November going into December. And then, of course, it's the holiday season. And then we have play will be resuming in Armenia in February, club, but elsewhere in Europe, top 5 leagues should be resuming within a couple weeks into the new year. And already in March, these qualifiers are going to begin. So it's going to come. It feels like it's a long time away, but it's going to come pretty quickly, I would say. Well, that wraps it up for the national team. But there is still one big headline that we need to discuss, gentlemen. It is the fact that the Football Federation of Armenia and Joaquin Caparros have decided to part ways. This was after, of course, the recent Nations League campaign. The Football Federation want to take a new direction in these next set of qualifiers and need to make a decision rather quickly. But before that, let's take a look at Joaquin Caparros as a whole and essentially what he achieved for the national team. Charles, what is, in your opinion, what's the biggest achievement Caparros had?
In my opinion, what's the biggest achievement? Well, the UEFA Nations League B promotion, because in the long run it helps us. It helps us. Like now, we were just talking about how we're in pot 1 in the next UEFA Nations League. That's not the only thing that helps us, though. Mm-hmm. In terms of it shows, or as an overall image for Armenia, it shows that there is quality there. Mm-hmm. We played well and we got there. What happened after in that league? Sure, it wasn't good, etc. We already discussed it. However, the promotion personally is the best thing that he's done so far.
Agreed. I think that's something that we won't quickly forget. And as a result of that promotion, like we just said, pot 3 in Euro 2024 qualifying. So that's another achievement of his. He was the one that got us there. Armen, you're a little more of a stats guy. Statistically speaking, break it down. How did Joaquin Caparros do for Armenia?
Good. I mean, solid good. And had it not been for the last season, he would have been like fighting to be perhaps the best Armenian national team coach of all times. And even then, he got up top to the top 3, tied with Minasian, in my opinion. We're going to go into the stats in a little bit, in a few minutes. But before that, I would have to say that for me, the most important thing Caparros has achieved and has succeeded in taking Armenia into new heights was the 9-game undefeated run. It was the historical undefeated record for the Armenian national team. With yes, of course, we are a recently independent nation, and the national team has only a few decades under their belts. But he was the one to achieve the longest undefeated run for the national team, and it was like starting on his very second game, I believe. Even the first one, we should have not lost. It was an unfair game in Skopje against Macedonia, where they were handed 2 penalty kicks that weren't fouls, one on Haroyan and one on Hapatsumyan, and Armenia deserved to at least get a point from that game, and it was a great showing. And after that came win after win, and then a draw and a win again. And for 9 games, a whole calendar year, Armenia looked unbeatable. Like the way it was, they were not being beaten, and it legit looked unbeatable. Even Croatia, the World Cup runners-up, yes, it was a friendly game. And it started off feeling like a friendly game. They were allowing a lot of dumb mistakes in very Armenian fashion, but after a while, they started to focus, and the Croatians started to get a little less friendly, and things like got heated up, and they really hustled, and it became competitive. Like Croatia came to a point where Croatia couldn't, like, really wanted to break down Yurchenko's goal and couldn't after their opener by, I believe it was Kramaric, I can remember. And Armenia tied that game, equalized, and had the opportunity to win actually away. And only after that, the friendly loss against Sweden, and it took, like, as I mentioned, the whole Heno Mkhitaryan locker room fiasco to change that virtuous cycle and the winning spirit that the team had until then. I've never seen an Armenian national team be at such a high level to compete with literally the best, because Croatia was the second best in the world, and for such a long time, like, never. For real. I mean,
Yeah,
it's great.
Breaking it down by the numbers, he had the second most games in charge. He had the second most wins, and he had the fourth best win percentage. But that's, counting people who only played a few games.
Most of the positives came within his first year and a half.
Yeah, he overall had 26 games in charge. He won 8, drew 6, and lost 12. If you combine the wins and the draws, which as Armenians, we'll take a draw as well, considering though a lot of these draws were against inferior opposition, but that's 14 wins and draws, which is more wins and draws than losses, and that's something that I think we should look at as a very, very positive thing. So it's great. We're very happy we had him. It feels a little bit like an end of an era type ordeal, with Ginés Melendez no longer being the sporting director and Joaquin Caparros stepping down. Feels like the Spanish connection is wearing off, but hopefully the influence stays there. And I think that was the whole point, right? That was the whole point of bringing in Melendez, who had brought in Caparros, who they were both implementing these game plans to change Armenian football from the grassroots level. And these are, we might not see the fruits of these labors for another 10 years down the line, but I think if you look at Armenian youth players today, I think the way that they play, and this is something that I noticed when I was watching, I believe it was highlights from the under 19s, the under 17s who recently played. Their passing play is so much better than it was 5 years ago. Armenian youth teams, young Armenian players 19 and under are much better passers. Even 21, our U21 players, I would argue, are much better passers than our senior national team players. And this is a direct result of these changes. So hopefully whoever comes in next continues that growth. But the big looming question is, who is going to take over? There have been a couple of rumors, the first being Andrei Talayev, who's a Russian manager. He was like an assistant for the entire Russian youth setup. He actually had a crazy run with Pyunik at one point, but that was denied by himself and the FFA. There was also rumors that we have learned about today about Luis Fernandez, who is a very experienced manager, former manager of PSG, also became like a scout, and he's worked with one national team, I believe, but he's out of practice for a few years. And the final rumor is one that I like a lot, which is Bielsa, who comes from an actual good source apparently, but there's still no clear word from his circle. What we do know, though, I read a couple days ago that Bielsa had turned down going to Santos in Brazil because he didn't think the project was interesting enough. Hopefully, the Football Federation. Yeah, well, what's a more interesting project than this Armenia team? But I'll open the floor to you guys.
Yeah, with Melendez, like, we're the heritage of Melendez.
And there's the connection, the Bilbao connection. There is, which seems to be the weird focal point in all of this. Out of every club in the world, it's Bilbao.
I love it.
But who would you guys like to see? I think let's do it this way. Give me an ideal manager and give me a realistic manager. We'll start with you, Chance. Who's your ideal manager? Available current manager, not Jurgen Klopp. Don't tell me Jurgen Klopp. That you would like to see
No, I
manager.
wasn't gonna say that. I was thinking to make that joke, but no. I'm not gonna. Unfortunately, I have to disappoint everyone and say that I haven't researched enough to see who is unemployed currently and who would fit in the national team. So I really don't know what to say for this.
That's fair. I know Ahmed probably has an opinion or two or 10.
Ahmed will probably be like Tito or Theo or someone.
All right, Ahmed, give me an ideal, or give me a ideal manager and give me a realistic manager.
You need more than 10 plans, always. That's the way Monte Melkonian taught us. But for real, I share Charence's honesty because I haven't researched that far. I mean, Sergio Markarian wouldn't be a bad alternative. Much like Luis Fernandez, he's been out of practice. I think he might have even retired, but he coached Greece national team, Paraguay national team. Like he knows national teams, right? He's Armenian, so that it's more than fitting. I don't know, he won a lot of things. He literally won a lot of titles in South America. But again, he's old and he's been out of practice for 6 years, so that I think that's off the table already. Honestly, ideally, it would be somebody that adjusts to our play style. Somebody that plays that likes short passing football, which wasn't Cap's style. But I wouldn't say Bielsa is unrealistic. I mean, we have a project, and there's the Bilbao connection. It would make sense.
I agree. I do think it would make sense. I think he, of course, is a manager that prioritizes attack over defense, which I like personally. And I think for all parties, I think it makes sense. But whether or not it's appealing to him, because it is a step down. I mean, let's be real. He's not, but it's not like he's managed. I believe he's managed a couple of national team sides, right? He managed Chile and Argentina, so clearly he's not opposed to managing an international side. It's going to be a different competition for him, that's for sure. I mean, playing against European.
Exactly. I mean, and you said it's a step down. It might, yes, but getting that first elite coach, as was Cap, was key for the Armenian national team to now be able to attract, to lure. Like, oh yeah, that's the national team that Joaquin Caparros used to coach. It's not that bad, and they start considering Armenia. That was the one breakthrough. Like, aside from all the stats, aside from promotion to League B, the title, the historical undefeated run, there's an off the pitch thing that is like the attention that Cap brought to the national team. Now we're up another level, and the FFA and the Armenian football as a whole needs to match that step up. They need to follow and meet the standards. It's a new standard now.
Throughout my I've done a little bit of research on based on our Spanish connection that we talked about on possible people that can be brought in that are very realistic. One person that isn't a big name, but to me seems very, for some reason, seems kind of likely, is Albert Silaves, who is a Spanish coach, formerly of Valencia, former Valencia manager. He was also the Spanish under-21, under-17, and under-16 manager, while Ginés Melendez was the director of football at Spain. So that's one very realistic connection that could possibly happen.
Aram hit the bingo.
There are little things like this. Another person this is a little bit more out there, I would think, and the connections are a lot more loose. But Quique Setién, former Barcelona manager, is also available. That's another big one. I'm not going to even mention some of the other ones like Zidane and Benitez, because those people wouldn't go.
We had one or two fans saying I want Benitez. I mean, I understand those fans, but I also don't really see it, and I don't really see the point of thinking about that. I'll tell you what though, even though I said I haven't researched and such, some names or specifically some criteria that I do not want to see is, firstly, Melikian. Melikian shouldn't come because, one, he's building something at Pyunik. He should focus on that. He shouldn't focus on coming to the national team and taking, selecting these players, bringing them on, trying to qualify, trying to achieve something. The second criteria that I don't want our fans to see or to expect that much is to not expect from coaches who are who have won a lot of trophies. I understand they have won it, but if those managers come, you're going to be expecting us to win trophies, which with the national team it's difficult to win trophies because trophy means World Cup, trophy means Euros. Firstly, we're trying to qualify. Let's try to achieve that as much as possible. Let's try to build the base of something like Caparros. Some of the good things that he had done was his connections with Celta Vigo and PSV. No, PSV was not him, I think. But Celta Vigo with Noah, if I might be wrong,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, the thing is, his Spanish connections. You see, those things they play the role to build, to start to lay a foundation into something. So we want someone to build that foundation, to help build that foundation. That being said, it could be someone Spanish. It makes very good sense. The staff members are Spanish. I don't think they were let go with Caparros.
They're a package deal, I think. But
they're a package deal. Okay. So,
but another person that just from my research that comes to mind that makes a lot of sense. And these aren't big name people that like the average listener of our show is going to be like, oh, I know that person, unless you watch a lot of Spanish football. Marcelino, who was just recently let go as manager of Athletic Bilbao, former Valencia, former Sevilla, a guy that has a lot of managerial experience. He's in his late 50s, and he actually has success. He won the Copa del Rey and against, I believe, Barcelona. So a really good, solid manager that is available right now. So these are things that, there are, of course, wish list items. Everyone would love a Zinedine Zidane to come manage Armenia, but that's just not how it works. We all have our wish lists, and I know that the Football Federation is going to leverage their connections, and our connections right now are Spanish, so that's just very likely where this is going to end up. We're not saying for sure the manager is going to be Spanish, but I think if there is a desire to continue this growth, that's probably the way that they should be going. Any last thoughts on this topic?
We need a project. That's a project. That's my 2 cents. My last thought.
Yeah, to lay a foundation to starting something, to basically help build the whole national team, because the national team is what people look up to. Not everyone looks at clubs. Many people, many Armenians who want to watch football with Armenia is just the national team. They don't know much of the clubs. So laying the foundation for that is going up in every single aspect of the whole country, the whole federation helping one another to grow.
Yeah, they need to start taking good decisions and set egos aside. Like back to the diaspora issue in the APO, they need to like you have a talent, make the most of it. Set your egos aside. I don't know. There's a lot of things, you know. They need to change things from the root.
Yeah, and also I think we need a stronger personality. Communication issues I think was huge,
Bielsa,
and I think we need someone to come in and whip these guys into shape and be a no nonsense person. And I
Bielsa,
think
Bielsa, Bielsa.
it to me it makes sense. Let's see if the Football Federation can pull it off because I guarantee you he's on the top of their list. I guarantee he is. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the national team segment of this episode. Don't worry, it's not going to go for another hour. We don't have much left to talk about. We're going to turn our attention to continental competition, but in the club sphere. The UEFA Europa Conference League resumes along with the rest of the European competitions this week as Pyunik take on Zalgiris of Lithuania, the first Lithuanian club to be playing in European competition in a double header. So we will be playing them back to back in two matches that are essentially very crucial to whether or not Pyunik will be able to make it to the knockout stages. Zalgiris so far has played two games. They've drawn one and they've lost one. They have a -1 goal difference. I believe it was a 0-0 draw with Slovan Bratislava and a 1-0 loss to FC Basel. Clearly played extremely defensive against both teams, and maybe prior to the competition starting, they were looking at Pyunik and saying, "Oh, Pyunik is the team we can go all out attack and win," and they might be still thinking that. But I'm going to open the floor up to you guys. Zalgiris, Pyunik, 6 points up for grabs, and if Pyunik do get all six, knockout stage is looking extremely likely. What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't know. I don't know, bro, because I think Pyunik can do it, and I think Melikian will be able to play a chess game with the way Zalgiris plays. They clearly are a defensive-oriented club, as you've mentioned. They do not score a lot, and rotation is going to be key. You know, because they started the three main Armenian backbone of that so far, which is Yushchenko, Taktashian, and Hovhannes Harutyunyan. They've started them all three against Alashkert this weekend. Of course, they won. They gave Alashkert an absolute thrashing, the way it should be, because Alashkert are honestly not good. And if half of the APO clubs set their sights to it, they can beat them, and Pyunik did. And I think he's not going to rotate a lot. I think he's going to start most of this lineup because they're well rested, and they're going to play again for the second time in 4 days against Zalgiris. They can do it. They can play the starters and win, and Melikian can rest them. Hopefully, he does next weekend. So they're also fresh for the away game to Zalgiris in Lithuania.
Yeah, they play Thursday at home against Zalgiris, and then the following Sunday, October 9th, they play against Ararat Yerevan. It's a very late kickoff actually, and it's a tough game. But it's one that I think they would be willing to rotate, considering they're traveling to Lithuania to play Zalgiris away on October 13th.
Their second string is class as well, and then they need form. You got your Korenik Petrosyan, you got your Spirovsky, you got your they don't have a bad bench.
No, they don't, and I think
Listevsky.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very possible. I think if we do get 3 points at home, it would be huge. And I think equally as big for us would be Basel taking care of Slovan. As much as we want to see Tigran Barsegan succeed,
Yeah.
Slovan is just not doing so hot right now. So in all ways, shapes, and forms. So I think it would be of huge help to Pyunik if Basel did the double on Slovan. Oh, speaking of Tico, he actually came on and got an assist today.
Nice.
They're currently playing against Zalgiris. I can't even say that, and they're tied 1-1. It's the 80th minute. Tico came on and he assisted Vladimir Weiss. Elsewhere in Europe, Armenians, we have the UEFA Champions League where Mkhitaryan and Inter Milan will be taking on FC Barcelona. And in the UEFA Conference League, we have Andrei Chalasir, who will be taking on FC Steaua Bucharest, Zalgiris Alamian versus Partizan Belgrade. That's probably going to be a sick game to watch, Cologne versus Partizan. And then Barsegan, of course, in the same group as Pyunik, with Slovan Bratislava taking on FC Basel of Switzerland. Boys, great episode. Thank you for joining. It's going to be a very, very interesting week. Thank God we have European competition.
UEFA Youth League as well.
There's UEFA Youth League as well. The second leg, I believe, right, of Pyunik versus Nantes, which Pyunik are down 2-0 on aggregate. Not impossible to come back, but you know what? It's a great experience for the boys.
Bro, if you're in Yerevan, if you're listening to this and you're in Yerevan, go support our boys. They did a fantastic job in Nantes, in France, in northwest France, which was a very hard task for 16, 17-year-old Armenians. And they actually got to Armenia with an actual chance. Like 2-goal difference is not undoable. Of course, we're not expecting much, but they're doing their best and they're actually doing well. So go support them.
Yeah, and if you're in Yerevan, please go support Pyunik at home against Zalgiris. I think there's going to be a lot of support for that game, considering that last win against Slovan. I think a lot of people in Armenia are going to be supporting them, and I'm actually.
I hope so.
A side note, I'm really pleased with the amount of people I'm seeing attending Armenian Premier League games this season. No one goes to Alashkert games, very self-explanatory there, but Pyunik have a lot of support in their home games. Urartu, of course, always have very, very good support. Adana Armenia, the stand is always full. Really good to finally see the domestic league getting supported.
Think about this for a second. Look, started from the bottom, now we're here. We have 2 games on the same day for European club competitions. UEFA Youth League, which is the equivalent for Champions League for under 19-year-old players, and UEFA Conference League, both on the same day in Yerevan. I mean, that's prime example of progress being possible.
Yeah, exactly. So whether or not the national team is getting relegated or not, just know that there is stuff happening in more important areas of Armenia's football development. I know the average Armenian is just, or the average person is just going to view national team results unless they're very into European club football. But there are very, very good signs. We just hope the Football Federation is now taking the active steps, continuing, I should say, to take the active steps on the national team front, because in terms of youth development, in terms of club football, the evidence is there, and it's very clear as day. We are growing, we are getting better, we are improving. Hopefully Pyunik can do great at home and great in Lithuania, and in the next episode we could be talking about knockout stages of European competition in our second ever year. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Boys, this was awesome. Let's do this. We should do this a little more often. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have not already, please follow us on our social media. We're almost at 1,500 followers on Twitter, which is insane. That's crazy. Thank you for all of your support. And the YouTube, people have been watching on YouTube, which is great. Keep watching on YouTube. We love it. Listen to the show, like, share us. Tell your friends about us. You know, we're cool people. And follow us on Instagram.
Especially me.
Please interact with us. We really, really like it when you message us, you talk to us, and a lot of you have actually after these recent results have been messaging us. So we'd love interacting with you people. So interact with us, share it, just do everything you can. Whether or not you believe it, you doing these things are actually helping Armenian football grow. I'm gonna start blabbering. Everyone, enjoy your week. Go Pyunik. And let's wait and see who is the next manager of the Armenian National Team. That's going to be it for Football Kentron this episode. I'm out. We're out. Peace.